Ionescu, true. Jonquel Jones with a tough bust.
Still here, little shoulder shake. Oh, what a shot!
Phoenix with the move down the lane. Cloud into the paint. Reverses it in. The New York Liberty are WNBA champions.
Hey Liberty fans, Felicia and François here, and we're back with another season of Liberty FM. Our championship team have begun the 2025 season with a decisive win against the Las Vegas Aces by a score of 92-78. It looks like our team is picking up right where they left off with a win. François, let's get into it.
Let's get into it, and welcome back, Liberty fans. It's good to be back for another WNBA season. It's been a long off season, but I still feel like we're on cloud nine, no pun intended. But as usual, the WNBA off season is a long off season. But it felt kind of different this year because of the expansion draft with the Golden State Valkyries, and then Unrivaled that pretty changed the game and brought some excitements in the off season. And the Liberty have made a couple of changes in this season. The New York Liberty lost their fan favorite, Kayla Foran, in the expansion draft. We were fearing that KT might be the player that the Golden State Valkyrie would choose, and that's exactly what happened. And then we lost also Courtney Vandersloot, and we had an idea, sense that her time with New York was coming to an end, and we don't blame her. I mean, she wanted an important role and wanted to feel value. And we know with the new role for Leonie Fibish in the Liberty team, taking over pretty much her spot, we knew that she might want to go somewhere else. But despite that, I felt like when you look at the roster of the Liberty, that they might actually look stronger than last year with Natasha Cloud, Rebecca Gardner, Sherrod, and Marquisha Davis that have improved and gained confidence by playing abroad. Easy Harrison, Marine Johannes back. It felt like the team is pretty much stacked. And when you look at sports analysts, they pretty much said that the New York Liberty are the favorites to repeat the title. They obviously have Indiana, Vegas, and Minnesota as, very close to them. But pretty much like, they are their own worst enemy, right? Like if they perform at their level, I don't see how the Liberty shouldn't repeat the title, right?
I mean, it only gets harder. The target is now on their back as they, won this amazing title and got the rings, and what a wonderful ceremony it was this past weekend. But the target's on their back now. And the chip that they've given to Minnesota, it's kind of like they had that chip on their shoulder after losing to Vegas. They gave that to Minnesota last year, so Minnesota is coming out strong. Nafisa and the crew on Minnesota's team, they're going to try to take this one. And so the Liberty definitely gained strength by adding Natasha Cloud. They got that dog on the team now, and, it's what the fans have been wanting for a few years now. They wanted Natasha Cloud. They needed that, and with the loss this year of Benajelani, Cloud is filling some big shoes, and I think she can totally do it. And with the depth that you have now on the team, I think for, Sandy Brondello, it's just figuring out, and it's going to take some time kind of figuring out how to really insert people so they can just play at their best level. Because sometimes we've seen lineups last year where we thought this isn't a good fit.
Yeah.
But I think this is going to be the year where you're going to have the familiar faces. You already have your core. They know how to play together. They know what to do. They'll probably get a little bit, get some of the rust off. But then for the others who have, whether they've gone abroad and played and just gained that confidence, like Marquisha Davis, Jalen Sherrod, and now we have Rebecca Gardner. And I just think with these additions, we're going to see some people step up. We're going to see Kennedy Burke step up, and it's going to be a great season, but they're going to have to play even harder than they did last year, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I was privileged enough to be at one of the practices during training camp, and I was really impressed. The rhythm, the intensity that the players were putting at practice, I was very hopeful and very in awe of the level already for a training camp. The intensity that Natasha Cloud is bringing to that team, even in practice, is nothing short of amazing. And she's bringing that dog, that Philly dog that she keeps mentioning, and that's important for a team like that to stay hungry. And I think the other thing that also really impressed me was that they were not, thinking about the title of last year, thinking, oh, we made it, we don't have to like make any effort. We just have to redo what we did last year. No, they're still hungry, and they feel like, that was last year. Now it's a new year. So I was really like encouraged to see that, because sometimes you might feel like there's like the sort of like hangover of the title. But no, when you have leaders like Natasha Cloud, Stewie, JJ and Sab that feel like, no, like this is a new year. We have to put the effort, to win another title. And they know that it's actually going to be harder. You feel confident as a fan that, they're going to do it the right way. Now, before we look into the game against the Aces, if we look at the preseason games, which has been the first, to have like preseason games that fans were able to attend, the first preseason game at the Barclays since 2019, I think. There's not much you could take from preseason because it is preseason, and obviously Sandy is kind of looking at rotations, looking at the players that she's going to keep, because, Macusha Davis, Sherrod, Esmeralda Martinez, Nia Odom, they were fighting for their spot. So obviously you have to take into account those things. And they lost against the Connecticut Sun. Nothing to be really worried about. They were kind of figuring things out, giving time for everybody. But the one thing that I noticed in that game and then the game against Toyota, the Japanese team, was the perimeter defense and the rebounds. So that was definitely two things that I was looking for in that game against the Las Vegas Aces. But now the other thing that we didn't mention is the fact that we also have a new coach in the coaching staff, Sonia Rahman, who is the offensive coach of the team now. And she wants to implement a 5 all-out system where basically there's more movement and more players in the perimeter. And when you have bigs like Stewie and JJ that are so versatile and can do pretty much everything, that is something that I'm definitely looking forward to see. And when you look at, the first quarter, we could already see that implemented, where all the players were in the perimeter, people cutting, go screening. There was a lot of movements, probably more than we've seen in the past. And you saw that the Aces were a little kind of like, they didn't know what to do on defense because there was a complete boulevard in the paint. And we saw that, Natasha Cloud and Sab, used that to their advantage, attacking the basket, unmatched. And so that was very encouraging. And I felt like every time the Liberty were moving the ball and doing all the things that, they try to implement, they were successful. What did you make so far of this new brand of basketball for the Liberty?
I think it's going to take time to fully master it. I think, it's the first game. So some things are going to go really well, and then some things, aren't going to go as well. I think for them, starting the game, there were a few times where, they were on the perimeter and initially no one cut to the basket. Yeah. And the paint was wide open for them and no one was really cutting. And I remember just seeing that, wondering like, okay, are we just going to stay at the 3-point line again? What's happening, guys? But then eventually I think, they got into rhythm and you started to see Natasha Cloud, slashing to the basket, but Stewie cutting to the basket or JJ. And I think that is what, if they keep that up and they start getting better with this system that's getting implemented, they're going to be pretty tough to beat. They're obviously... You're going to have teams coming at them and thinking that, they're going to get the Liberty team of last year. But no, you're getting a healthier team at that, because Stewie obviously is in a much better place. She had a minor surgery in the off season and after the Unrivaled season. She's doing better. You're going to have Phoebish and everyone back who their defense is just, as we can see in this game, Phoebish coming back and just recently coming back from her win with her team over in Spain.
Yeah, which is crazy. Like less than pretty much a week ago, she was in the final in Spain.
I'm sure she was still jet lagged coming into this game, but she's such a tough competitor. And still, even if she didn't score much. I don't know that she did score in this game.
If I'm looking at the stats, she only had 2 points.
Yeah, but her defense was tremendous.
She was pressing Chelsea Gray full court most of the game.
She had Chelsea Gray.
Insane.
And Chelsea Gray is an amazing. She's gonna be a legend.
Phoebish was questionable for this game because obviously she was still kind of tired and jet lagged, and they decided during the warm up that she was good to go. And she was pressing full court Chelsea Gray.
Yeah. And Chelsea Gray, it is not easy.
We saw at Unrivaled,
We saw Chelsea Gray in Unrivaled, and she is tough. And then she's point guard, so you got to respect it. But good on Phoebish to just come in and do her best. And in this game, I will say that the contributions by everyone, it was a full team contribution. They weren't just focused on one or two players, and that was great because Sab didn't have the best game. They defended really well on Sab, so she couldn't get a lot of clear shots off, but you had it was pretty even amongst everyone else with Stewie, JJ, and Natasha Cloud. And Natasha had a tremendous game. I don't know that anyone expected Tosh to come out and do that. I think we thought the reverse, that she'll be the defense. We're not even, if she scores a few points, that's great. But then she had the highest of them all. So
listen, a phenomenal game by Natasha Cloud. And I just remember when I got the notification on my phone saying that Natasha Cloud was traded to the New York Liberty, because let's just recap. She was playing for Phoenix. She, even to the point where she was saying that she was going to retire there. Next thing you know, she's having the time of her life on arrival, even trying to recruit Satu Sabali to come to Phoenix. And next thing you know, she's traded to Connecticut for Alyssa Thomas. And now you're in the situation where you have a tanking team. The starting lineup of last year is all gone except for Marina Mabry. And, that must have been terrible for her to feel like, okay, this is like what I gave to the organization. Now you trade me in a situation that I didn't ask for, and I cannot even compete for a title. And so, I'm grateful that the New York Liberty pushed for her, and it was like matchmaking.
Match made in heaven.
Exactly. Like, it should have happened already like 3 or 5 years ago. But I remember when I announced it to you, like the joy that you had, like you screamed,
I was
literally,
screaming because I
how
knew,
happy you were.
Just like any other Liberty fan, a few years ago when the Liberty had that playoff game against DC, and Tosh Cloud got pretty much she got an ovation,
a standing ovation, and she was an away player.
Her defense was just so intense. I mean, her defense, she went all out in that game, and she just earned mad respect from the Liberty fans. Like you can tell. A great player who's just out there giving it her all, and she did that. And then from then on, not just me, about every other Liberty fan was saying that's who we need on our team right now. And I think she's going to provide that spark to the team. She really, you can see how much she enjoys just being a part of the organization, and you also see how much she pours into her teammates. And you can see it. It's almost like it's lighter. Like they all look just. I mean, obviously. This weekend was the ring ceremony, the banner. So everything is just, even a lot more joy and happiness on the court. But I do think Tosh Cloud is going to add this injection of joy, loving the sport, giving it all you got, and just putting it out there. And you can see that in her team and the teammates, and just seeing how much she pours into them and how much they're going to have her back as well, because she's going to give it 110%.
Yeah, there's this thing about East Coast cities, right? Like, especially like Philly and New York, that greediness, that dog mentality. And it's funny because, like, if you ask, like, Philly fans and New York fans, we're pretty much rivals, right? In terms of like sports teams and all that. But we also have this mutual respect, right? We
Yeah.
recognize that we like have the same passion for our teams. And so I knew that like Natasha Cloud, it wouldn't take more than one game to be the fan favorite already. And you were mentioning the fact that at some point the Liberty were kind of stagnant on offense. We're not moving the ball. The players would kind of try to, create by themselves and not being successful. And so, the Aces started to make a run and come back. And, I think they were down by 2 at some point. And this is the moment, like, there was like this momentous shift. And that was created by Natasha Cloud. She had 2 hand-won plays that drove the Barclays nuts. The first one, she just drove to the basket. I think it was Chelsea Gray that tried to steal the ball. But Natasha Cloud was too powerful and still managed to get the basket and then won. And then you saw like, flexing some muscles and getting the crowd going. So that was the first one. And then right after the play with the Aces, they kept like missing shots and getting offensive rebounds to the point where at some point like Natasha Cloud like dived to save the ball, pass it to Stewie. Natasha Cloud stood up. Stewie gave it back to her, like a Formula One race car. And she just drove to the basket. And then I think it was once again Chelsea Gray that tried to have an offensive foul and didn't. And that was like, that kind of brought me back to the Leonie Fibish free in the final of game 2. Remember when the ball was kind of rolling? They stole the ball and then she's like, let me just stop and get that free. And then the crowd went crazy. That kind of brought me back to that game 2 of the finals. And that's the energy that Natasha Cloud brings. And then I think right after that, she stole the ball from Jackie Young and then had like a play with JJ that gave her the ball, set a screen for a free. I think that was pretty much the turnaround in that game and kind of gave a comfortable lead to the Liberty. And so Natasha Cloud, that's only one game, okay? Let's try to measure our expectations. She might not come up with a performance like this every single time, but it's already so promising because, like you said, Sabrina didn't have a great shooting night, but that allows her to do other things, and she can rely on Natasha to also carry the ball and doesn't feel like she has to do everything. And what was also surprising was that Sandy was not even afraid to have free guards on the court, adding Marine to the mix. So you have so many weapons. You have Cloud that can sort of like up the tempo, being a dog on defense. You have Sav that, can have the floaters, the frees. You got Marine as well, with the one leg free, crossovers, and crazy passing. Like, there's so many options. It's really exciting just to think about it. So, sky's the limit, really.
And I think, give credit to Vegas because it's a tough team. Vegas did all they could defensively. I think when you have 3 guards out there, and what helped Natasha Cloud is that they focused in on Sabrina and they focused in on Marine. They stayed on them. They couldn't breathe because if you give Marine space, she's gonna take a 3. She's gonna take a shot, and they knew like these 2 we need to lock down. We might just have to let Natasha Cloud be and have some defense, obviously, and she took advantage. So I think it's great that for this first game you saw where everyone was a threat on the court, and okay, you could focus on MJ, you can focus on Sab, but now somebody has to focus on Cloud. And if you're not going to put the pressure on Cloud, she can explode to the basket. She can get the points that, maybe Sab and MJ couldn't. And so it's just another threat that, I think I was just excited, honestly, for the fact of Natasha Cloud being here for her defense and just pushing her team and pushing the team. I know she can definitely score, but I wasn't even looking for that. That wasn't my main objective. I thought, okay, if she gets like 10 points a night, great. That's fine. But to see her come out and, I know she said like her family was there and, friends and everybody was there supporting her. So just to see that she has such a wonderful game and just a really powerful game, it was great for her. But I also think the other thing for the Liberty that I noticed in this game are their bigs. I liked, especially when they had not only the 3 guards, but at one point, did they have all 3 bigs out there?
I'm not sure. Because Niara came into the game when JJ had 2 fouls. So I know at some point...
I think they only kept it to 2 bigs at the most. But there was a time, and I think for JJ, I noticed something for JJ and Stewie, which to me could be somewhat of a cheat code. I would say this, I would compare this to everyone talking about Asia and Stewie on the U.S. team and how they play together, and you just couldn't defend on that. Like, you had 2 bigs who are so versatile. Yeah, people had a really hard time. I feel like that could be the same with Stewie and JJ. Maybe not to Stewie and Asia's level, but I think they can get there, though. I think if they play off each other, it's going to be really tough because, again, no matter what the Liberty do this season, you still got to feed JJ. You still have to play for JJ. She was the MVP last year in the finals. There's a good reason for that. You still need to play for JJ. She's still going to be key, a huge piece of how you win these games.
Yeah, I mean, we saw in the stats anyway that when Jonquel Jones is the focus of the offense of the New York Liberty, the New York Liberty pretty much wins every single time. So that's going to be important. Yeah. I think that she did more like she was more in the perimeter, but kind of setting screens for pick and roll so that she could have the ball in the post. So that's something that will be interesting to do because she can't necessarily like just be at the post and ask for the ball when she has someone like Asia Wilson defending on her. So, and it was the same with the Minnesota Lynx. I think that sometimes they were like double teaming her or putting a lot of pressure on her, which made it really difficult for her to have the ball in good conditions. So now like setting up plays that will allow her to have the ball in better conditions. I think that is definitely something to look for. And I feel like when I look at the stats, like she had like a quiet 17 points, but like she had the biggest plus minus on the court for the Liberty, plus 19. Mm-hmm. So we know how crucial she is. And then you also talk about Stewie. I mean, that is the quietest 25 points, 8 rebounds I ever seen in my life. Yeah. Like, and maybe that's like something that we should, hope for Stewie because, like, remember that 2023 season where she was MVP? It was great and it was great basketball, but it was not sustainable in the sense that when it came to the playoffs, she was gassed, like, because she had carried the team all throughout the season. Last year, she didn't have to do as much. There was more weapons. But like this year, it's even more so. And it was interesting because she said in the post-game conference that she didn't necessarily consider herself a guard. And then Natasha Cloud corrected her and said, no, like you have the skills and you do things like a guard. And that kind of make her life easier to have, someone like Stewie that has those abilities. And so for me, that's definitely something I want to see more in the future. I don't know how much it's the new offensive system or the fact that it was just what the defense gave her. But a very effective game for Stewie. She didn't really force like threes like she would do last year. She only attempted 2 threes. She didn't make them, but I didn't feel like she really forced. She just like drove to the basket, find her spots, cutting, go screening. So that was like a really great game for Stewie. And let's just think about the fact that, she only started playing like last week because she didn't have the first preseason game. She had the second one against the Japanese team in Oregon. And she even had a conversation with Sandy because Sandy before the game was like, like Stewie would be on minutes restriction, I think about 25, 27 minutes. And then like Stewie was like, let's discuss about that. They had back and forth, but she understood that it was for the best. But, because Sandy said if I was listening to Stewie, she would play the whole game. So I think, there was that conversation to find the right balance. But, like, that was an impressive game considering how much, she didn't have much time with the team. She didn't, like, play 5-on-5 that much in the training camp. And didn't play the first preseason game, so
I don't worry too much about Stewie.
yeah,
She's
but
that
that shows you the professionalism.
Yeah. And she's such an unselfish player.
Yeah.
I think that is one thing about Stewie is that she's not calling for the ball all the time. She's always looking to give to her teammates. She's always looking to whatever the best play is. And it doesn't have to be her making the shot. She's always looking for what's the right read, what's the best play here to make. And it doesn't have to flow through her necessarily. And so just being that unselfish player, and then that translates to your whole team because everyone's passing the ball. At some point, somebody has to take the shot. Somebody's going to have to shoot the ball. And yeah, for her to get 25 points, and correction, I thought it was Tosh Cloud that had the most points, but Stewie did. And Stewie just had it just seemed so quiet.
Yeah,
I guess, with Tosh Cloud coming on and just electrifying the crowd, you didn't pay much attention to everybody else scoring. And it was just like, wow, Stewie out here having all these points and rebounds, and she affected the game in a huge way. And so, I think with her unselfishness, that helps her team, and that shows her own leadership, and she's going to come out and get her points. She's going to get out there and do what she can for the team. But she also lets the game come to her.
Yeah.
She's not trying to rush it and putting it just on her shoulders. She knows she has excellent teammates who can do the exact same thing, and even more so. So she doesn't have to worry about it all just being on her shoulders.
Now, one player that we haven't talked about and had a key role in this game, and I think moving forward will have a more important role for the New York Liberty, it was Kennedy Burke.
Yeah.
Because obviously with the loss of Kayla Foran, Kennedy Burke is going to be required to do more.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, she had a decent season last year, but as the season progressed and then the playoffs, she started losing playing time and kind of lose her confidence. But I think the difference this year is that she had the chance to do the training camp, which she didn't do last year because she was still playing in France.
Yeah.
And then left even before the season ended in France and didn't get to enjoy the title with her French team, Villeneuve d'Ascq. So she was not in the training camp last year. She did this year, and she emphasized how much of a difference it was for her and how hard she worked in the offseason and playing in Turkey as well. Because I think she knew that, if she wants to play more, she's going to have to put the work. And I think she probably had those conversations with Sandy. Sandy is trusting her and probably told her that we're going to need more from you, or I'm going to give you more responsibilities. And so it was great to see how, the confidence in her shot. Because I think in Europe, she was a decent three-point shooter, but in the WNBA, obviously the level is higher. Her mechanic, I felt like, needed some improvements. And when you look at that game against the Aces, she was 2 for 3 from the three-point line, but it wasn't you could tell she put the work and her mechanic was much better and she shot with more confidence. What did you make of her overall performance?
I think she did great in this game. She's key, just like she's going to be key to that second unit for the Liberty, with, MJ probably kind of playing in and out of first team, second team, and, Rebecca Gardner as well. So she has to set the tone because there's going to be times she's going to be the point guard. She's going to be bringing the ball up. She's going to, have to play different roles, and Sandy's going to kind of throw her in there. And so in order for her to just be successful, she just has to stay ready. And that's what she, I think she did that last year. Yeah, KT was at that point the better player to use, leading into the playoffs than Kennedy Burke. But this year it's going to be up to her because, she's going to have to lead that way also and lead kind of that second unit with MJ, with Rebecca Gardner. I know they're going to kind of toss some of the starting lineup in and out, but there's going to be moments where she's going to be playing with various players and she's going to have to use all her versatility. And also on defense, she's a really good defender as well. She even, she had some moments with Asia. She did her best.
I mean, it was
obviously
tough.
it's tough. It's Asia. You got to respect the fact
Yeah.
Asia was MVP last year, so you can't. All you can do with Asia is try your best. JJ gave Asia a tough time, but she also still got her points as well. So I think for Kennedy Burke, I really believe she's gonna have a great year, and she's just gonna grow from here with the team, and it'll be great. And I think also her connection with Tosh Cloud.
Yeah.
Last year we saw her and KT, and that was the connect, and now she has Tosh Cloud and Sherrod, and I think that's gonna be a great little unit, and they're gonna help each other out.
Yeah. Now, quick note on Asia Wilson. I know it's a New York Liberty podcast, but that's when you realize when you have an opinion just based off watching games on TV, and versus being at the stadium and see it for yourself, it's a totally different thing from watching a game on TV and watching it live in the stadium, because when you see Asia Wilson from up close, a game is incredible. She's unstoppable. And it was interesting because she was the only player that didn't get booed when the Aces were presentation.
You gotta respect it though.
That tells you that even the Liberty fans, they have respect for her, even though there's this rivalry with the Aces and we don't particularly like each other.
I think you gotta respect. To me, yes, we're not Aces fans. However, I do respect the Aces because they're a tough team. And, you got to respect the people on that team, like Asia Wilson, like Chelsea Gray, and you can throw Jackie Young and others in that mix. But those two, for me, Asia Wilson and Chelsea Gray, those are your top two. And you got to put respect on that. You can't just come out and think, oh, yeah, we got this. Nope.
Yeah.
Asia still got 30-something points, I think, in that game.
31 points.
So,
it's just the quickness, the physicality, the technique. All she needs now is, let's just hope that she doesn't do it on a regular basis, especially against us. But if she adds, 3-pointers, she had one. I feel like she's attempting more, but if she adds that to a game. And then I think sometimes Becky Hammond, I think she wants her maybe to, carry the ball so that they can up the tempo. I felt like the Aces were trying to up the tempo and kind of see, because that was a weakness for the Liberty in the past, transition defense. So if you have your big that, dribbles the ball as well, that could also give you more options. So, and I think she did it at times, but she's still not fully confident now. But yeah, just to see her up close, I don't think people realize how great of a player she is. And the MVP title was totally deserved. Now I think this year she will definitely, Nafisa Collier is definitely going to give her a run for her money, but that would be for another time and maybe for a different podcast. But overall, a great performance from the New York Liberty. You could tell that the Aces are not there just yet. You see that the lack of options on the bench for the Aces is going to be a problem for them all throughout the season, because the Liberty had quite a large rotation, and they didn't even play Rebecca Garner that much. They didn't play Jalen Sherrod and Ricochet Davis that much. They play only in the garbage time. I think. Say it again.
And Izzy.
Yeah, Izzy as well. But I felt like she was trying to protect Rebecca Garner, because obviously she had serious injuries in the past. So that's her first competitive season in 2 years. But they definitely have more options than the Aces. So that's why at the moment it's still the beginning. But I definitely see the Liberty ahead of the Aces at the end of the regular season.
My hope is that, with how far this team has come, that Sandy will give. I know that she's probably not going to give too many options when it comes to teams like Vegas
Yeah.
Minnesota, even Indiana.
Yes.
But I think for some other teams, you'll probably see, you'll probably see some of the bench players try to get a bit more, depending on how the game goes. Obviously, maybe you will see Marquisha get some minutes. You'll see Izzy. You'll see Rebecca Gardner. And, I hope that she gives them that and figuring out what game to put them in for that. Because obviously the top teams, you probably won't see much of them. And I get it. You're going to have to play hard if you're, got to get these wins. And so I'm hoping that this year with the new system that they have coming in, that you'll see that these ladies will see more minutes.
No, she will, because it's going to be a longer season, 44 games.
Yeah,
Last year was
your bench.
Year was 40 games. The year before it was 36 games. So you're going to need your whole team for such a long season. And then we're going to lose Maureen Johannes, Leonie Fibish, and Yara Sabali for the Euro basketball.
So you will see them in there.
So you're going to see more minutes for them. And, I don't know, but they might bring one of the players that were part of the roster during training camp back, like Esmeralda Martinez or Nea Odom, or maybe someone else, who knows. But they will have that chance, that's for sure. I think Sandy definitely mentioned the fact that because it was the Aces and such a big rivalry that she wouldn't necessarily give much time to those players.
Can I just say that looking at these stats, this is the first game in a very long time. I don't remember when the last game where I saw the Liberty only having 6 turnovers.
Oh, okay.
Not in double digits.
Wow.
I'm very proud. I'm very happy about this because usually they have over 10. They have like 10 to 12, if not more than that. And I was like, the Liberty, we gotta work on these turnovers, and they only had 6 turnovers. So I'm happy with that. And also, although the 3-point stat was completely abysmal, they were shooting 19% from 3. Points in the paint, 56 points in the paint, only 32 for the Aces. Listen, the Liberty, they come to play, and if they have these kind of stats where they don't have to rely on the 3 as much, where they're a 3-point threat. You have Sabrina. Everybody pretty much in the starting lineup can shoot 3s. But to have that stat line that you attack the paint this time around, that's an excellent stat for them, because that also shows me just their versatility now, where they don't have to rely so much on the 3 ball to get scores.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think, it was mostly in the third quarter I felt that the Liberty were forcing. And then there were a couple of times they had open shots, they just didn't make them. But, in the past, they probably would have forced more. Mm-hmm. I know that, some of the games that they lost against the Minnesota Lynx in the final, where you felt like, they were running out of options, and the fatigue, I guess. Whereas this time around, it happened for a short period of time, but then they switched right back to what was successful. And therefore, that's why, most of the points were in the paint. I definitely, I'm definitely looking forward to see more of that new system, because it's going to cause a lot of problems. And I think it's good because, especially, the next time we face the Minnesota Lynx, I don't know when that will be. You need to bring new stuff, because
you have to.
Like we saw last year that they knew defensively what to do to cause us problems, and obviously we have a lot of talents on the team, so that's how we managed to pull it off. But you cannot expect to do the same thing and be successful again. So
and Nafisa's on her revenge tour. I mean, they all are. The whole team.
That kind of scares me a little bit.
But Nafisa for sure.
Yeah. So we'll see. But that's definitely promising. But we don't really have time to rest on our laurels, because this week, this couple of tough games. I know that the Chicago Sky didn't particularly start the season very well against Indiana. But it's not going to be necessarily an easy game on Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern time in Chicago. So that would be the next game for the New York Liberty. And then on Saturday, they will go to Indiana and face the Indiana Fever, who's a dark horse in this season. Mm-hmm. They recruited quite a lot of players. Obviously, Caitlin Clark in the second season. That's going to be a very interesting game to see like where we are.
That's a wait and see for me. I know
Yeah.
people say how much Indiana is going to be a threat. I do think they'll be a threat. I definitely think they'll get into the playoffs. Where they'll be is a question mark. They're not top 3 to me. Maybe top 6, but not top 3.
Ooh,
I still have, to me, I still have the Liberty, Minnesota, and the Aces. You know, I think the Aces can figure it out. I think, you know, yeah, they lost this first game, but again, it's the Liberty. So, you know, these are top teams playing. So I don't know. It's a wait and see on Indiana for me, because I do think the Liberty have the defense. I think other teams like New York, Minnesota, Vegas, I think they can go toe to toe with Indiana, and I think they will all win against Indiana. So, you know, we'll see. Maybe I'm proven wrong, but I think the Liberty can take this one because yes, they have a good team on paper. You also got some older players in there, and it's great to have the veterans, but I do think the physicality of the Liberty team is going, and the length of the Liberty team with Phoebish. And I mean, you have a lot of length coming at you on defense with Phoebish, Stewie, JJ, just those 3 alone.
Yeah.
And then how relentless, you know, Natasha Cloud is. And Sab, give Sab credit. Sab is working on her defense. She knows that, okay, I'm not the greatest defender out there, but she's working on it.
She did a good job.
You can tell. And
against the Aces.
She did a good job. She did just enough to disrupt.
Yeah.
You know, she's not going to be Tash Cloud. We need Sab more for offense. But she did just enough to disrupt. And I think, you know, the way the Liberty started out this first game, you know, we'll see. It's a wait and see, but I think they can take it.
Okay. Well, we're looking forward to that.
The only games I get nervous for the Liberty is Minnesota, because they have that chip on their shoulder.
Yes.
I feel like they're going to come with that extra bite. Kind of like how the Liberty played
against
Vegas against the Aces last year.
Yeah,
so,
definitely.
You know, you had to weather the storm. So, yeah, you definitely have to throw something new that they won't expect. But that's really the only team that, you know, I get nervous about.
Well, we still have a bit of time for that.
Yep.
So right now it's Chicago on Thursday and Indiana on Saturday. We'll be there to cover those games. Thank you so much for listening to our first episode of our 3rd season of our podcast. And as we always say, Felicia,
Let's go Liberty!